Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is a opinion piece, a very casual piece, particularly dedicated to the pro-Russian crowd or neutral crowd, or people who are literally just supporting Russia or prefer Russia to win in this war, and I understand you guys must be really vexed with the developments lately, and if you're pro-Ukrainian, I suggest you don't watch because later you get emotional damage, and I can't really compensate for your pain, but just joking. But the the latest past 10 days of developments or more looks pretty bad, really pretty bad for the Russians. For the Ukrainians, they have already more or less near to a operational encirclement of the Russian forces at Lyman, and the Ukrainians are also on the verge of breaking out from the Oskil Front, where the Dorishna forces is about to link up with the Kupiansk force, as the Dorishna forces have been pushing south. Fighting is already reported at Sinkivka, and they are just 3 to 4 kilometers away from Kupiansk. So, and once they linked up, and should the Ukrainians able to reach the opposite bank of Senkove at Krylyakivka, they will be able to restore the breach over here, and they can actually cause even further breakouts from the south. And this is all looking really bad, and some of you guys has been asking, why is this happening? Why are the Russian forces losing so badly? So the number one thing that I want to share, the reason is because which you have heard me say many times, there are just too few Russian troops on the ground. This is the direct reason why the Russians are not holding the defense line well enough, and this, and then you will be asking, why is there so few Russian troops on the ground? Actually, if you have watched every single summary of videos that I have posted over the past month, I have mentioned that there is a source, there is information from that is actually reported by Anna Dogireva, one female reporter. She was in Lyman. No, she was not in Lyman. She was in Izyum, and when Izyum is still under Russian control, and there's a soldier. I think there's a soldier. There is, I think, is part of the Luhansk or the Donetsk People's Republic. He told Anna that in the beginning of the month of September, the Russian forces has withdrawn. A lot of the Russian forces was withdrawn from the Izyum front and the Balakliya front, especially the Izyum front. And had these troops are not withdrawn, he said that this soldier said that it's impossible that the Ukrainians will be able to beat them. They will be able to hold the line. So, and then, so you have to put some credit to this tidbits of news or signal because it does seems to correlate with the reality on the ground. If this withdrawal is true, that the Russian forces has started withdrawing en masse from the Balakliya front and the Izyum front, then that would explain why the line collapsed so quickly. Then the question will be, where did these Russian forces went? And I can tell you a very straight answer. It's because of the referendum, the and the mobilization. So of course, if you talk about the partial mobilization by Russia, this kind of thing is not done, it's not announced casually. There must be a lot of planning, has been done before the announcement of such a partial mobilization. In fact, I believe the decision to have mobilization would have been decided more than 3 months ago. Perhaps when the front line is also stagnant, especially over after the success of capturing Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, they are unable to break Krychorivka, Verkhovokanyamske, Avonivka. What I thought would be a few days worth of fighting to capture Siversk did not happen, and the entire Russian lines just continue to get stuck for a very, very long time, months in fact. So under such circumstances, and not to mention the Donetsk front is basically stalled, it is no wonder that the Russian side have to think of solution. And perhaps clearly to us as well, casual viewers, we know that there is just not enough Russian troops on the ground, and which is why they are thinking about mobilization, because there is no more regular troops that they can call in without compromising security over at the other border areas. Because you have to understand, Russia is a huge place. Despite they have a million-strong army, million strong includes even admin staff, I guess, there is a lot of frontiers to protect. There is the North Korean side, all the way along the China side, and then they need to have some troops at least at the Mongolian region. They need to have forces over at the this Yakutsk, I think this is called Yakutsk, right? Region. They need to have have forces over at the edge. They need to maintain their fleets, and they need to have a massive force over on the western district, the Western Front, especially also at the central area where is to protect Moscow. So they need to have a force to keep a lookout against Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and also they need to have some standing army next to Belarus or within Belarus. And of course, they need to have a major force protecting Bryansk and Kursk and Belgorod. So the Russian forces, despite being very big, actually cannot dedicate more regular force into the special military operation. The same situation actually inflicts Ukraine. So despite Ukraine have a massive mobilization, I estimate they have a army, let's say, not counting dying, so no one died, for example, the troops, regular troops, all the way until all the mobilized troops, by now I believe they have a million soldiers. And a million soldiers actually have to be spread out across the entire border area. They need to protect the border with Belarus. So there is definitely significant forces just along the Belarus border to deter Belarus from trying to invade. And there's of course forces at Chernihiv and Sumy to prevent another northern front. And then they have to have a force at Odessa, and then they need to have a force around Moldova, especially Transnistria, to prevent Transnistria to get into the war, or to invade into Transnistria should Moldova ask for it. And then they also have troops on the western border, especially along Poland, which they actually have their own doubts about Poland. And of course, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary all have certain claims to certain territory within Ukraine, in the border regions. So the Ukrainians are definitely paranoid, and they definitely have to deploy forces all over the border region, which is why the actual fighting, the forces along the front line is pretty much on par, or only just slightly more, maybe 2 times more than or 3 times more than at most than the Russian forces that was deployed, which is around 250,000 troops. Probably by now, by before September, it's probably 200,000 because of the deaths, or even 150,000 because I believe many people died, especially on the militia side. The Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republic, their death number should be quite high because they are the people who are actually in the trenches. So given this situation, Russia have to mobilize. So to mobilize, they mobilized. They did a partial mobilization of 300,000 troops. And why 300,000? Why not a million? The reason is because they need to be trained. They need to be the information and the lesson learned in the Ukraine war have to be imparted. So you need to have instructors. So who are going to instruct? Who is going to impart all this knowledge? Now you have the answer. It is the forces that was withdrawn. The forces withdrawn from Kharkiv region, from the Balakliya Front, from the Izyum Front, especially the Izyum Front, which are the people who are very, very experienced fighting with the Ukrainian troops, are all withdrawn from the theater of war and to the rear and into Russia. And they likely, in my opinion, they are likely to be all assuming a role of instructor to these mobilized troops, which is why actually when you look at the Russian Ministry of Defense telegram, they also did mention that the troops, the mobilized troops, are training, and then they are trained by people who are experienced in the modern way of warfare, and which actually means that they are actually trained by veterans from the Ukraine war. So assuming that the withdrawn troops is perhaps maybe 50,000, so that would drop the entire force that is in the region from maybe 200,000 troops to 150,000 troops, and the 50,000 troops is probably all from the Izyum and Balakliya area as well as Kharkiv region, and 50,000 to 300,000. So maybe every instructor there's 6 infantry that he's training, or 6 soldiers that he's training. Although I think the number will be lesser than that, maybe 1:10. So 1 instructor to 10 soldiers. I think that is likely to be more of the case. So 300,000, that would mean 30,000 instructors at least. So 30,000 instructors. Where do you go to get 30,000 instructors who have experience in modern warfare, especially in the context of Ukraine war, of the operations in Ukraine? That would be soldiers that is fighting in Ukraine, which is the forces that was withdrawn. So this is why we are seeing a massive lack of soldiers in the front, in the current front in Lyman as well as in the Oskil Front. There is still soldiers, there's definitely still troops, but there's not enough. They are definitely getting outnumbered by the Ukrainians, perhaps in certain areas even 10-1. So the Russian troops are doing, whoever they are there, they are doing their best. I believe they are already informed of their mission. Their mission is to make time, is to drag it out for as long as they can until reinforcement arrive, and that is their job. So they have a lot of territory to trade, for time. They have the entire of this Kharkiv region. They have the entire of the Balakliya, the Lyman region, sorry, and then they have the Luhansk region as well. All this territory, is to trade for time, and but of course they want to do it. They want to as much as possible not allow the Ukrainian forces to enter Luhansk itself. However, this has already happened with the crossing at Serebrenka, and the Ukrainian troops has already infiltrated the entire forested area, and they are seen at Toske, at Yampil, and there are rumors at Crimea as well. And there was already a recon. There's a DRG reported at Crimea around a week ago. There's fighting reported at Crimea a week ago, before even this crossing. So there was already a signal that there is a possibility that the Ukrainians might cross. And with this DRG that was engaged in Crimea, that could also mean that the entire area was scouted out, and the Ukrainians know that there is no Russian forces around the region, which is why they did this massive crossing, and this happened, which also corroborates the fact that there is actually a massive lack of Russian troops in the region. So let's do some estimation. For example, I estimate 200,000 troops. Let's say there's maybe no let's say 50,000 here, 50,000 here, 50,000 here, 50,000 here. But this is actually 3 different fronts. We have a Sivas Front, Lyman Front, Oskil Front. And then Donetsk, we have another 50,000. Maybe not so much at the Zaporizhia region, maybe just 30,000. And the Kherson region, we have maybe 70, 80,000, because this is a very dangerous place, because the Kherson offensive is not a joke. The Ukrainians can launch a massive offensive at the Kherson region, and this is a very vital region. And the entrenchment here is not as heavy as in Donetsk, where you can actually man with lesser troops. But 50,000 only here, and it is not. It will not surprise me if the Ukrainians have massed up a 250,000 army to actually launch this major offensive, first at the Balakliya region, and then now at the Oskil and the Lyman front. So if it's 5-1, the defending force is not going to hold, which is why that's what we are looking now. There are just not enough troops to deal with the offensive. So the training, the troops that are sent back are training the 300,000 troops, and so that is why there is not enough Russian forces on the ground, and that's also why this success from the Ukrainian side is not going to be long-lived. The Ukrainians will be doing whatever they can to capture as much ground as possible, so that they have more power when they go into the negotiation table, to look as strong as they can. However, negotiation is likely to be impossible. And there is also another thing why there is a lack of troops, why is the massive withdrawal, is actually to lure Ukrainians out of their defensive position as well. Previously, at the Izyum front, the entire area here is so heavily entrenched, the Russian forces just cannot break through. It's just impossible to break through south of Izyum. And so by withdrawing or to fall back, the Ukrainian forces have to go out into the open, into unentrenched positions, which actually makes it easier to take them out with air force and artillery. So that's one thing. Second thing is that when the reinforcement does come from the partial mobilization, the Ukrainian troops will be engaged by superior numbers of Russian forces in open ground as well. So the Ukrainians will not be able to entrench in time, which means that it's much easier to wipe them out. So the Ukrainians are playing a very dangerous gamble here by pushing forward, because they will have no time to entrench themselves should the Russians suddenly do a blitz. But of course, Russians being Russian, they are unlikely to do a blitz through. They're going to fight slowly, and unless they're going to do another the start of the first week of the war, which I don't think they will, the Ukrainians will going to face a lot of problems when they're going to face with equal numbers, or they're going to be faced with superior numbers on the Russian side. So however, this also comes to the question where this reinforcement is not going to come one shot, 300,000. It's going to come in phases. There will be some troops coming in first, then some troops coming later. So the build-up will be gradual. And my understanding is that the refresher training is 2 weeks. So we are now in the first week. I believe the first batch of Russian forces will start to arrive into the war zone in a week's time, which means maybe by the mid of October we will start to see a slow surge of Russian forces into the front line. And given the current situation, I believe the forces is likely to be focusing mainly on the Luhansk region to beat back this offensive, because it's bad publicity if you allow the Ukrainians to run riot within Luhansk, which was 100% liberated. So, and And this 300,000 is not inclusive of the volunteer battalions, where Kadyrov, the Chechen leader, have initiated asking all the different states within the Russian Federation to recruit 2,000 troops or 1,000 troops. So 1,000 or 2,000 troops. So that will actually raise basically basically 2/3 of an army, which is another massive force. I think that's like 160,000 troops. So because there's 85 states, so 85 states each recruit 2,000 troops. That will be like 170, yeah, 170,000 troops. So that is already half the number of the partial mobilization troops. So, and then on top of that, Chechen forces also sent more troops into the region, and the Chechen forces currently is in the Zaporizhia region, as far as I understand. And then we still have the Wagner private military contractors, which were also doing recruitments around all the different prisons, giving prisoners 6 months tour. If they are able to complete the tour and not die, they will be scot-free. They will be able to cancel away all their crimes, and I'm sure there will be a lot of takers, because better than rotting in the jail. So no, the main fighting, the Wagner groups are responsible for the fighting in the Bakhmut region, especially in the Vestala Dolina all the way to Kurdyumivka. So this entire region here is all fought using Wagner group. So there is actually a lot of Russian forces in the region, and more is to come. So like for example, the Wagner group prisoners, they need to be trained as well. I believe their training is likely to be also 2 weeks. So whatever tide that we are looking at now is not going to last for much longer. At most, I give you another 2 weeks of Ukrainian offensive, and then I think the offensive will start to get bogged down. So it's really up to the Ukrainians to see how far they can go. Their target will be Sviatove, Crimea, and perhaps even Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, if they can manage. And these few cities will give them a massive leverage in terms of negotiation, because that will make them look really good. So that's the sum up of this entire why there's no Russian troops on the ground story. And on top of that, I think also there is a rumor. There's a rumor that the Russians might start to use tactical nuclear weapon after an ultimatum is not met by the Ukrainian side. So I thought one pro-Russian source wrote that according to the MI6, they sent information to the Ukraine ministry, which I have no idea how it's leaked. So take that with a massive freaking ball of salt, that the MI6 told the Ukrainians that the Russians is going to negotiate with them with phased negotiation, with ultimatums. The first ultimatum is to withdraw from all referendum territory, which is Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. If they do not withdraw, then the Russian will start to use tactical nuclear weapon. So, but that's of course very exaggerating. I personally don't think the Russians are going to do that. But of course, never say never. And there's also in this information that this acceptance of the annexations or the application for ascendance into the Russian Federation will be either on the October 3rd or the October 4th. Because the State Duma is meeting on October 3rd, the Federation Council is on the October 4th. So And so by then all this territory will be considered Russian territory. And what will happen there is that on top of the 300,000 mobilized in the troops, the conscripts will then start to come into play, because if these are Russian territory, then in essence, according to the constitution, the Russians are able to use conscripts on Russian territory, which means that they can start to mobilize the conscripts and ask the conscripts to do humanitarian missions, operations, or protection operations, key facilities, operations, security operations. That means all the defending job and all the extra humanitarian jobs will be done by the conscripts. Then the full 300,000 troops will be fully mobilized for war, only for war, for offensive action, which is different from the special military operation, where despite they have a massive number of troops, 250,000 or 200,000 troops, these troops still have to perform other missions, like defensive missions, humanitarian missions. So with the declaration that this is part of Russia, then a lot more levers can be used by Putin to put pressure and enhance the war against the Ukrainian side. And this is going to be quite scary. We will know it in a few days time, since the information says that it's going to be in October 3rd or 4th. So I believe the announcement will be on October 5th, I guess. That will be October 5th is 1 week, just 1 week from now, which coincides with the first batch of fully trained or refreshed partial mobilized troops. So you can see the timing is pretty spot on. It's all planned. It's definitely all planned. So so if you are pro-Russian viewer, hang on. The emotional damage is going to end pretty soon. And if you are pro-Ukrainian and you're still watching by now, I would say enjoy the victories and the success now. War will start to get really hard in a week or two, and it's going to get really crazy should Russia go nuts. And I have no idea, because Russia always tend to misleads me into thinking the wrong way. So who knows? So anyway, this is just a very casual discussion, not even discussion, just lecture or just sharing session about what I think about the Russian defeats in the past months, and why there's so few troops, why are they losing. And the conclusion is because it's all part of the plan. They withdrew the forces to train the partial mobilization mobilized troops to lure the Ukrainians out from their entrenched positions, and then so that they can actually fight them in a more even ground. So anyway, this is the the opinion piece from Defense Politics Asia, and I'll see you in the next update.